Britain, autumn 1940. The air smells of smoke and damp earth. Across the channel, the fires of the Blitz still glow in the night. The Battle of Britain has been fought and barely won, but the cost is staggering. Every hangar, every workshop, every aluminum sheet has been pressed into service. Britain's aircraft industry is exhausted, and the war is only beginning. Factories are running day and night. Skilled metal workers are scarce. The Luftwaffe still rules much of the sky over occupied Europe. And the next phase, strategic bombing of Germany, demands aircraft Britain can't yet build. The Royal Air Force has its heroes, its Spitfires, and Hurricanes. But what it doesn't have is capacity. The nation's reserves of metal are dwindling, and there is no time to rebuild. Within this crisis, one man stands at the edge of orthodoxy, Geoffrey de Havilland, an aircraft designer with the instincts of a craftsman and the stubbornness of a dreamer. His company, de Havilland Aircraft, has built graceful civilian planes before the war, but now he is thinking of something no one else dares propose, a bomber made not of metal, but of wood. When he first speaks the idea aloud, even his colleagues blink in disbelief. "You can't fight a mechanized war with furniture," one Air Ministry official mutters. The skepticism is justified. To many in Whitehall, wood belongs to another century, a material for biplanes, not bombers. Yet, de Havilland sees a different truth. Britain has forests, carpenters, cabinet makers, and furniture factories untouched by the aluminum rationing strangling the rest of the industry. Wood, he argues, is a national resource waiting to be weaponized. Still, the idea runs against every military instinct of the era. Modern war means speed, armor, and mass production, all synonymous with metal. Wooden aircraft seem obsolete, fragile, and unfit for the air battles of the 1940s. But de Havilland believes that lightness itself can be armor. "A plane too fast to catch needs no guns," he says. His doctrine is radical. Outthink the enemy, don't outgun him. In Hatfield, north of London, his small team begins sketching the impossible. No rivets, no armor plating, no defensive turret, just a sleek, unarmed, twin-engine craft built around 2 Rolls-Royce Merlins and a frame of laminated birch and balsa wood. It will carry bombs, cameras, or guns, depending on the mission, but its real weapon will be speed. They call it Project DH-98. The concept tests every convention of British aviation. The Air Ministry refuses funding at first. They prefer heavy bombers like the Wellington and Lancaster, aircraft bristling with gunners and steel bulkheads. De Havilland builds the prototype anyway, privately in secret at his own expense. It's a gamble bordering on madness, a defiance born of desperation. Outside the design office, the war grinds on. The Luftwaffe's raids intensify, and Britain's cities burn nightly. In the dim light of blackout curtains, the engineers glue, clamp, and sand thin sheets of birch veneer by hand. Each piece is pressed into curved molds to form the fuselage halves, a process closer to craft than industry. But there's a problem no amount of passion can solve: the glue itself. The old casein-based adhesives can't survive high stress or damp weather. Under heat or vibration, they weaken, splitting the layers of plywood apart. For an aircraft meant to fly faster than 400 miles per hour, that's a death sentence. So, the team turns to the British chemical industry for a miracle, and finds one. A newly developed synthetic resin adhesive, a byproduct of experimental plastics research, promises something revolutionary: waterproof, heat-resistant. When cured, the bond is so strong that during tests, the wooden sheets break, but the glue joints remain intact. An engineer whispers in disbelief. "The glue's stronger than steel." It becomes an inside joke in the workshop, but the phrase holds a deeper truth. The secret adhesive, eventually known as aerolite, gives the Mosquito its skeleton and soul. It will be the invisible force holding Britain's gamble together. Yet in 1940, no one outside Hatfield knows. The Air Ministry remains unconvinced. Reports mock the idea of a furniture bomber. In a war of steel and fire, the thought of a wooden aircraft borders on lunacy. Still, in the small hours before dawn, the men in that workshop keep building. They know that if they fail, the planes won't fly. But if they succeed, their creation might just change the rules of air war itself. On a foggy morning in November 1940, the prototype rolls onto the field for its first engine test. The propellers bite into the mist. The twin Merlins roar. The fuselage trembles, but holds. The wooden wonder is alive. And soon, it will prove that Britain's last resource, its ingenuity, was stronger than steel. Hatfield, England. Winter 1941. The war has entered its coldest season, and so has Geoffrey de Havilland's conviction. His team has built a prototype that looks nothing like a weapon of war. Pale wood, seamless curves, no turrets, no armor. It gleams like a piece of fine furniture under hangar lights. The ministry still calls it a folly, an indulgence of a dreamer. But in that hangar, the craftsmen and engineers know otherwise. They've built something that feels alive. What makes it work isn't the wood, it's the glue. Inside the de Havilland workshops, the smell of sawdust mingles with chemical resin. The new adhesive, a light amber mixture known only by its trade name Aerolite, is brushed between layers of thin birch veneer. The halves of the fuselage are pressed in massive molds, each layer bonded under heat and pressure, until the join becomes a single piece of laminated strength. When the molds open, the seams are invisible. The aircraft looks carved, not built. Every test surprises them. Drop tests, vibration tests, cold soak endurance. The wooden frame refuses to fail. When they force it to the breaking point, the wood splinters before the bond gives way. One mechanic jokes, "You can break Britain, but you can't break that bloody glue." De Havilland writes to the Air Ministry again, politely defiant. He knows that every hour counts. British industry is straining. Aluminum production can't keep up with losses over the Channel. But there's no shortage of carpenters, cabinet makers, or glue. In small towns across England, workshops are converted overnight into aircraft assembly points. Cabinet makers who once built pianos now build wings. Furniture factories switch to bomber parts. Country estates become temporary depots where tail sections and fuselages are mated together. The war machine has turned into a workshop nation. The Mosquito, still officially a reconnaissance prototype, takes to the air on November 25, 1940. Geoffrey de Havilland Jr., the designer's own son, climbs into the cockpit. The Merlin engines snarl to life, the wooden fuselage vibrating with their pulse. The plane accelerates down the runway and lifts into the low mist, smooth, silent, impossibly fast. From the ground, the engineers hold their breath. Minutes later, the aircraft streaks overhead again, shimmering silver in the pale sunlight. The test flight logs a top speed of 392 miles per hour, faster than a Spitfire, faster than anything the RAF owns. A wooden aircraft has just outrun its metal contemporaries. When the figures reach the Air Ministry, silence fills the room. One official simply mutters, "Good God, it works." But even then, approval doesn't come easy. In 1941, orthodoxy still rules the British war machine. Heavy bombers are the gospel, bristling with gunners, built to survive, not evade. A plane without armor or weapons seems suicidal. De Havilland doesn't argue, he demonstrates. The second prototype, the Mosquito PR MKOI, is fitted with cameras instead of bombs. In daylight tests, it soars beyond interception, climbing past 30,000 feet, snapping reconnaissance photos deep inside occupied Europe. It returns untouched. German interceptors can't catch it, and flak gunners can't track it. Word spreads quietly through RAF intelligence. The wooden thing works. By spring 1942, Mosquito production expands under secrecy. The furniture plane becomes a ghost in the sky. Its plywood skin doesn't reflect radar beams like aluminum. German operators think it's a glitch, a bird swarm maybe, until bombs start falling. The glue stronger than steel is now more than a joke. It's a military secret. German engineers who examine downed mosquitoes later report their disbelief. The wreckage shows smooth laminations that won't peel apart even under intense heat. The wood burns, but the joints hold. "We thought it was madness," one Luftwaffe technician later admits. "Now we think it's genius." Still, for every flight that succeeds, there's a night of nerves back in Hatfield. The craftsmen work by candlelight during air raids, sanding wings as bombs fall miles away. Each Mosquito built is more than an aircraft. It's a protest against despair. As Britain begins its bomber offensive into occupied Europe, the Mosquito quietly joins the fight, first as a scout, then as a bomber, and later as a pathfinder for the heavy formations that follow. It slips through flak bursts, unarmored, unescorted, untouchable. The war has found its ghost. And behind that ghost lies a truth the Germans can't comprehend, that Britain's most advanced weapon isn't made of steel or armor, but of wood, glue, and stubborn faith. France, 1942. A thin layer of morning fog drifts over the channel as the first Mosquitoes cross into enemy airspace. No escorts, no formation. Just two wooden aircraft racing east at 400 miles per hour, their twin Merlins howling through the clouds. To radar operators below, the screens flicker, confused. The wooden fuselage absorbs their signals. German interceptors scramble too late. By the time they're airborne, the intruders are gone. The Royal Air Force has unleashed something new. Not a plane, but a concept. Speed as armor, silence as weapon. The Mosquito carries no turret gunners, no armor plate. Its only defense is the invisible bond that holds it together. That strange amber resin that seems to defy physics and fire alike. Some crews call it superstition. Others call it magic. But pilots who've flown the Mosquito know the truth. It's alive. Each mission proves what the skeptics refuse to believe. The wooden airframe flexes through turbulence instead of cracking. The wings absorb shock from flak bursts instead of tearing apart. And when German bullets punch through, the wood simply splinters and closes again, leaving no jagged edges to ignite fuel lines. Steel shatters, one RAF engineer says quietly. Wood forgives. In February 1943, Mosquitoes execute one of the most daring raids of the war, the precision bombing of the Gestapo headquarters in Oslo. Flying low through mountain valleys, dodging snow and flag, the wooden planes glide in at treetop height, release their bombs, and vanish. The building is reduced to rubble. The Germans call it impossible. The RAF calls it proof. By that year's end, the Mosquito's reputation has spread across every front. Pilots nickname it the Wooden Wonder. German soldiers call it Der Holzgeist, the Wooden Ghost. It bombs at noon, photographs Berlin, and returns before the alarm sirens fade. When Luftwaffe engineers finally recover a mostly intact wreckage near Caen, what they find stuns them. The fuselage seams are smooth and seamless, not bolted, not riveted, but fused. When they try to pry apart the laminations, the wood itself splinters while the adhesive bond remains intact. One German metallurgist, frustrated, reportedly said, "They built it like a violin, but it fights like a panther." Back in England, de Havilland's factory can barely keep up with demand. The Mosquito's versatility astonishes everyone. Bomber, pathfinder, night fighter, reconnaissance plane, even courier for urgent missions. It becomes the RAF's Swiss Army knife of war, doing everything the rulebook said a wooden plane could not. In late 1943, a squadron of Mosquitoes performs another impossible act, a daylight strike on Berlin itself. They hit the German capital just as Hermann Göring is delivering a radio broadcast. The bombs land close enough to shake the broadcast tower, cutting his speech short. Göring, humiliated, rages. "That damn wooden plane! I could never understand how the British made a plane from wood that goes faster than our best fighters." For de Havilland and his engineers, that outburst is the ultimate vindication. Their defiance, their refusal to conform to the orthodoxy of steel, has humiliated the Reich. But behind the triumph lies quiet sacrifice. The carpenters of England, the joiners of Canada, the furniture makers of Australia, all have turned their hands to war. Their craft, invisible and unglamorous, holds together an aircraft that will help win it. By 1944, Mosquitoes lead the way in nearly every major raid. They navigate for the Lancaster squadrons, mark targets with pinpoint flares, and strike bridges, trains, and radar stations deep in enemy territory. Many crews never return. Yet the survivors speak of the aircraft with reverence, as if it had a soul. A pilot named John Cunningham, later the RAF's top night fighter ace, said it best. "You didn't fly the Mosquito, you wore it." Each man trusted the glue, the wood, the invisible chemistry that bound them together. No one ever questioned it again. By war's end, the Mosquito's record was unmatched. Faster than the Spitfire, more versatile than the Lancaster, feared more than any single British aircraft, save the jet age to come. It had rewritten the rules of aerial warfare. But for all its speed and glory, what truly baffled the enemy wasn't its engines, or its design, or even its missions. It was that quiet secret baked into its bones, a glue so strong it held not only the wood together, but an entire nation's will to endure. As one German engineer later confessed, examining a captured fuselage after the war, "We were prepared for Britain's steel. We were not prepared for its imagination." England, 1945. The war is winding down. The skies that once echoed with the hum of Merlin engines now hang still over quiet airfields. The men who built the Mosquito, carpenters, chemists, dreamers, returned to their towns and workshops, their hands roughened by war, yet marked by pride. What they created was not just a machine. It was proof that invention could be a weapon as powerful as any gun. By the final year of the conflict, more than 7,700 Mosquitoes had been built across Britain, Canada, and Australia. They flew over 28,000 missions: reconnaissance, bombing, pathfinding, night fighting. Their losses were light compared to their impact, a testament to speed, precision, and that invisible bond inside every frame. The wooden plane had outflown Germany's fastest fighters, outthought its radar, and outlasted its mockery. What began as a desperate gamble became one of the great success stories of the war. When captured Mosquitoes were examined in detail, German engineers still refused to believe what they saw. The fuselage looked seamless, impossible. The joints held tight after burning, soaking, or crushing. Reports to Berlin spoke in tones of disbelief. Their glue cannot be removed by heat or solvent. The joints are stronger than the parent material. The phrase that began as a joke in a British factory, stronger than steel, now stood in the enemy's own files. Back in Hatfield, Geoffrey de Havilland walked through the assembly line one last time before victory. The air smelled faintly of resin and sawdust. The men who had once doubted the wooden dream now saluted it. For him, the Mosquito was more than an aircraft. It was a philosophy made real. Perfection, he once said, is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. That ethos would ripple far beyond the war. In the decades that followed, engineers studying the Mosquito's construction realized how far ahead of its time it truly was. The laminated shell, wood, resin, and fabric fused into one, was an early form of composite material. The principles behind its secret glue would inspire generations of aircraft design, from the lightweight fuselages of the Cold War to the carbon fiber of modern stealth planes. In a way, every whisper-quiet jet and radar-resistant fuselage traces its lineage back to that same idea, that the right bond, invisible and perfect, can outlast any weapon of brute force. In the museums of Britain today, the Mosquito stands quiet, its pale wooden skin polished smooth by time. Visitors often mistake it for a fragile artifact, unaware that it once flew through the worst skies of war. Children look up at it and see an antique. Veterans look up and see a miracle. One former pilot, standing before a restored Mosquito at the de Havilland Museum, said softly, "She never let me down, not once. That glue held us together. It wasn't a boast, it was gratitude." The Mosquito's story endures because it captures something eternal about the human spirit, that when resources run out, when logic says it can't be done, imagination takes flight. It reminds us that innovation often comes not from strength, but from scarcity, not from abundance, but from belief. As the camera pulls back, the hangar lights dimming, the polished fuselage fading into the shadows, the narrator's voice lingers, calm and reverent. In an age of steel and fire, one wooden plane proved that victory doesn't always come from armor or might. Sometimes it comes from glue, faith, and a nation that refused to break. In the end, the Mosquito's secret wasn't the resin in its veins. It was the courage in the hands that built it, the bond that was, indeed, stronger than steel.